What's up, everybody? What the hell might be happening over there in your place? Thanks for tuning in to the Crash Bang Boom podcast. Today's guest is drummer Noah C. of UK's Conjurer. Noah and I get into how he joined the band, his favorite spots for playing in the UK/Europe, experiencing longer drives in the States while on tour, the hardcore scene he grew up in, upcoming dates, and he even schools me a little on drinking culture in England. So I hope y'all enjoyed the chat. Tour dates for the rest of the year can be found at conjureruk.com, some of which are with Swiss band Nostromo, I hope I pronounced that correctly, who is sick as hell if you haven't heard them, and those shows are between UK, Belgium, and the Netherlands starting September 28th. Today's episode is sponsored by my man Carson Gant, aka OneUpLoops.com. Carson and his team spend a preposterous amount of time recording over 430 shaker, tambourine, and hi-hat loops at every possible tempo and multiple feels with incredible mics and outboard gear for you to pick and choose. It's organized for you to find exactly what you need with just a few clicks and everything feels. You can sign up for free to check it out and gain full access to all 430-plus loops starting at just $6 a month. No download limits, whatever you want, whenever you want. New loops, one-shots, and drum breaks are being added weekly, and as someone who's used it myself, I can vouch for it. Check it out at oneuploops.com. Crash Bang Boom podcast can be found on iTunes, Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, Luminary, Google Play, Podbean, and Amazon Music Podcasts, to name a few. Feel free to check out any of the previous 260-plus episodes and give me a like, a subscription, and or a positive review, as it is appreciated. All right, here we go. It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. Crash Bang Boom.
Crowds go mad with joy.
All right, I'm here with Noah C. of Conjurer, straight out of the UK. Noah, what's going on, man? Thanks for rapping with me today.
All good, man. All good. It's a pleasure. Yeah, thank you for having me.
I know, it's 10 a.m. I slept in a little bit today because I'm off this week, and you're looking kind of chipper, and like you've done your day already, and I'm over here looking like I did a power drinking episode last night.
Yeah. I might have done a power drinking episode myself yesterday, but yeah, I've had enough of the day to get through it. But yeah, it's about 3 p.m. here, so yeah, kind of mid-afternoon, which is nice vibes.
When I think of drinking in England, and by the way, I haven't been there. My European excursions have been, let's see, France, Germany, and the Czech Republic, but I haven't done the England, Scotland, Ireland, that area, although I definitely want to. But is it pints in England, and like, are they semi-room temperature? Do y'all drink them cold? How does it work there? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty, in terms of the actual drinks and stuff, it's pretty similar to the States. A lot of pints, yeah. But I think it's kind of a national sport here, I think, to drink.
That's my understanding.
yeah, it's taken very, very seriously. In terms of temperature, it's pretty chill. I mean, we've got ales. Ales are pretty warm.
Right.
And then you got lagers and pilsners and stuff as well. So
right.
Yeah, not so much ale I saw out in the States, but yeah, it's all pretty. I mean, I'd say it's pretty normal because I've grown up with it. But yeah, we've got this kind of brand out here called Wetherspoons.
Mm-hmm.
It's great if you're really young because it's cheap. You get a pint for £6 or £7, but
right.
It's not great for the pub economy in the UK. But
yeah,
they seem to. I think their trick is ordering beer that's pretty much on its sell-by, and then serving it extremely cold so that you can't taste
correct
how kind of awful it is. So
yeah,
that might be where that comes from.
So they have a version, they do that here in the States as well, where at least one bar in particular that I could think of, when it's about to go, they just call it they name it after the bar, and fill in the blank ale, and that's what it is. It's like Bud Light or some light beer that's like about to go bad.
Nice.
But to your point,
that's better.
Yeah, you serve it cold enough, I suppose you'd think about it certainly less,
Yeah. I mean, it's nice if that bar, they're advertising that it is going out. So
right.
If you're up for it, then go for it. But this, I think the Wetherspoons way is just kind of hush hush. Here we go.
Interesting.
We'll serve this to them, but it's cheap.
Are the Guinness like room temperature? Because we drink them cold in the States.
Yeah, we got extra cold. I think most pubs serve extra cold Guinness, which is nice.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Right on, man. Well, I was thinking about the first time that I kind of became aware of Conjurer. I had a couple of buddies show up to a pretty stacked bill when Conjurer came in, to my understanding, before your time and played the Brooklyn Bazaar in Brooklyn, a venue that's no longer there. But it was at this 2 double floor. They even had shows down in the basement. It was this big, like, it was like a big banquet hall that they turned into like this kind of multi-level, like, venue. I missed Conjurer because it was such a stacked bill. I saw Psychroptic, Voivod, and then Revocation. And so I had just missed y'all. And the name is stuck around kind of in my head because my buddies that were there said y'all were great. And then I checked y'all out, and then I had an awareness of you. But most recently, I guess, what if Conjurer's done 3 runs in the States over here? You did the most recent one. Tell me a little bit about that one.
Yeah, the recent one was with Chemist. Chemist and Wake from Canada opening. Yep. So that was a great bill because it was the first time we'd been out. Well, it's the first time we've been out with me, so with the new lineup, and the first time promoting the latest album, Pathos.
Yes.
And I think it was on Chemist's album promotion tour as well.
Okay.
So for The Deceiver, I think it was. So yeah, it was kind of a great, and Wake as well, actually, thinking about it. We're all out there promoting new material, and
nice.
It was just a great vibe. Everyone was really nice. And it was, obviously, like I say, I wasn't on the previous 2 tours, but the ones before were with Revocation, as you said, and Rivers of Nile before that, which are all quite technical death metal lineups.
Right.
So it's great for the band in Conjurer to kind of stand out on that bill. But I think with this time round with Chemist, it kind of felt like, God, if we put on a good set, everyone that enjoys Chemist and Wake is going to enjoy us. So
right. It
was a bit more like playing to a home crowd in that sense. So yeah, it was a really, really, really great tour, really great experience. So
where were some of the cities, or what area did y'all hit on that run?
So we started kind of the northeast.
Okay.
Kind of Philly. Mm-hmm. We basically went down the East Coast along through Texas and then up the West Coast. For like Portland and Seattle, and ended in, is it Vancouver? Like at the top of, So it's quite a long haul.
I was about to say, how long was that tour?
It was about a month, 3.5 weeks, 4 weeks. So yeah, great way to see the country as well.
Oh yeah, I mean it's so spread out. Whenever it's, I love going to Europe and just being like, oh, we're already in another country. And I mean, things change geographically, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, there's a lot of like just sort of generic, sort of nondescript cities in between some of the bigger ones, or maybe there's rural areas that have a particular geography. I lived in Utah for a little while, and that's like a bizarre desert Mars face. It's just such a bizarre place. And now I'm in Georgia, so it's like more rolling hills. And we just went up into the Smoky Mountains, which are 4 hours from here. Wow. So we've been mixing it up and being able to do fun little trips. But I grew up in the South, and it definitely takes a while. Like New Orleans is 7 hours south of here. So we just got to blast the straight 7 hours. But whenever I talk to like Europeans and y'all are like, what? You drove how long? It's an American thing.
The thing that shocks me is that when people go, or even if you go to a gig and you have a fan and it's this is like our local city or our local town, and it's a 3-hour drive from where we live, and it's like 3 hours from me would take me up to the Midlands. I go past 3 or 4 cities on the way up.
Right.
So it's kind of crazy, but it's great because it puts everything into perspective in terms of traveling around this country. And like you say, we just did a couple of weekend runs of kind of smaller towns in the UK, and the drives are like, cool, we've got an hour and a half to get to the next venue.
That's amazing.
This is great. Yeah, really, really cool. Loading's not until 3:30, so it's like decent. Whereas on the US tour, we were driving ourselves between the 4 of us, and it was a case of cool, 8 a.m. Or we would drive after the show, maybe an hour or 2, stay in a Walmart car park, and then whoever was driving the next morning would get up at 8, get some snacks, get some drinks, and then continue on the drive for another 5 hours to the next town or whatever it was.
Totally.
So it's quite grueling, but it makes you appreciate late mornings and stuff on tour.
Oh, for sure. And especially if you said y'all went through like some areas of Texas.
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of a blur for us. We had the AC broke while we were in Texas.
Was it during the summer?
It was during May, middle of May.
Oh,
So
okay, not full blown,
kind of
but
not full blown, but yeah,
hot.
for
Yeah.
a white English boy like me, it was pretty horrible. So that was kind of a psychedelic sweat fest going through Texas. But
Oh my
yeah, I
God.
think we hit up Dallas and
Did you do Austin or Houston?
Austin as well. Yeah, I think it was Austin. So
Nice.
yeah, it was cool. It was a cool experience.
Texas is a trip because I've driven across it a couple times, and unlike the other states, it can take you a long time. If you're doing south to North California, it'll take forever. But getting across Texas is trippy, just because it does start to feel like, wait, I feel like we should be out of this fucking state already, and you're just not.
Yeah, and it's so open.
Yes,
Like,
exactly.
you'll get on a road and you'll go, cool. Well, there's a town that looks like it's about a half-hour drive in front of us, and then you'll get an hour and a half in, and you're just still not there. And it's like, what's going on? Is this thing even moving? You know?
Right. So did the tour ended in Portland?
It ended in we did,
or Vancouver, probably, if you went up
Vancouver,
into Canada.
yeah. So we did Chemists and us. We did a festival in Vancouver on the last day, which was Modified Ghost Fest, which was cool, really great. So
nice.
That stint was really nice. Kind of Seattle, Portland, and then up to Vancouver was really, really nice.
Totally. Did y'all fly out of Canada?
No, we flew out of Seattle. So our one of our vocalists, guitarist Brady, his in-laws, they all live in Portland. Around Portland and Seattle area. So between that kind of those 4 or 5 shows, we were kind of driving up and then back down and like staying with his extended family. So it was quite nice. Yeah, we flew into Philly on the east and then flew out of Seattle.
Damn, and y'all were able to get a van rental to take you all the way up over there and leave it out there.
Yeah, I can't divulge too much because the company we rented from particularly rent out to bands, so they kind of hush on that, so.
I see. Okay, gotcha. Good call. All right, right on.
I don't think any of them would be listening to this, but on the off chance.
Right, fair enough, man. Question about Pathos. Well, I guess when did you join the band then? Was it just prior to that record, pretty much?
It was, it's prior just to the release of it. So
gotcha.
It was tracked during the pandemic, and then I started doing session work for the guys just after the kind of restrictions lifted in the UK to do shows, which was late 2021, I believe. So they had the album ready to go, and then it didn't come out until the following July, I think it was, or following June. So so it was all kind of good and ready to go, but the guys were just like sitting on it. I think a big part of that was obviously touring and then production of LPs and things like that.
Right.
Because as far as I'm aware, I think it's the bigger labels were ordering so much vinyl over the pandemic for the huge artists so they could keep selling over the pandemic.
Right.
And it just made the queue for kind of vinyl pressing just insanely long.
Absolutely.
And for the guys, I think that's such a big, well, for all of us as well, it's such a big aspect, is getting an album on release day of vinyl and being able to kind of listen to it in full and go through all the gatefolds and things like that. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I get it, man. That's a common theme amongst bands. A lot of bands were looking at doing something in 2020, and then, obviously if touring isn't happening and you're not going to be able to tour to support it, then everything gets postponed. Then on top of the logjam that happened in the vinyl industry, it just, I've talked to people that were like, had recorded stuff in like 2019, had it pretty much ready to go, thinking, all right, like summer of 2020, and then it's like, oh well, maybe we'll have to regroup in 2022.
Yeah.
It's wild.
I thought it was just going to be like 6 months or something, and then we'll be back to it.
Absolutely.
But there you go.
I know, right? Unbelievable. Well, question, I know, again, this is prior to you, but the record that Conjurer did with Pigeon, what's the story with that as far as whatever, with, I guess, the origins of it and how even who's playing what and what's going on with that record? Because I dig it. I just don't know much about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So the Curse These Metal Hands record with Pine, I think is.
Oh, it's Pine? It's not Pigeon?
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, honestly, I was the same. I was like, Pigeon? What a rubbish band name. But I think it's a Dutch word potentially.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think this was even before. It might even be before Connor's time as well. But basically, from our lights, Brady and Dan, the two guitarist singers,
Okay.
collaborating with Joe from Pine and a few other members from Pine at the time. Yeah, just kind of doing some Baroness rip-offs.
Right.
Was the vibe there.
I
But
know, it's cool though.
yeah, it's great. It's great. It's a funny one because it always kind of crops up. Even like on the tour we did with Chemist, we had people screaming for us to play
Right.
High Spirits or
Uh-huh.
Sunday or anything, and it's like, I'm so sorry, it's just not that bad. But yeah, that stuff's really cool, and I think it's great because from obviously I haven't worked with Joe, but Joe and Dan from Conjurer are very very creative people, so it's great for Dan in particular to have an outlet for some of their other inspirations that might not necessarily be appropriate maybe for Conjurer.
Right.
So it's kind of great to do that, and also it's just like a bit of fun really for those guys.
Mm-hmm.
We had a festival in August here in Bristol called Arctangent,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of a prog, math rock, kind of extreme metal festival.
Mm-hmm.
And they did a Curse These Metal Hands gig with a new song that Dan had written, or the guys had all written even. But yeah, it just seemed to kind of radiate just like mates having fun, nothing too serious, nothing too stressful.
Right.
I think, yeah, Jan, the previous Conjurer drummer, even came out and did a little banjo solo.
Okay.
So it was, yeah, it's just like, right, let's see what wacky stuff we can get on here.
Yeah.
Which, not to say that Jan might not do a banjo solo on a Conjurer album, but I think that's probably the place for that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's cool. It's cool. It's kind of a not a love-hate, but when someone asks you to play stuff from that, it's like, really appreciate that you love that, and that's part of the Conjurer story. But
hard to execute live.
yeah, we're really going to disappoint you, I'm afraid. So here's some grotesque heavy stuff instead.
Right. Speaking of grotesque heavy stuff, where are there any venues in the England area, UK area, broadly speaking, that are kind of like a home base for y'all?
Yeah, it's a tough one because the band was originally formed in Rugby, which is just kind of the Midlands area, just outside Birmingham a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So their kind of formative years were spent in Rugby, Northampton. Let's say, yeah, Roadmender in Northampton is kind of a band home. You know, the guys have all played that venue, and I myself now have played it a few times with those guys. So it's kind of a cool home base in terms of venues. But yeah, we're all kind of across the country now. Like Brady and myself live in London. Connor lives up in Leicester, which is a little bit further.
Mm-hmm.
Dan's still around Rugby. So yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, for me personally, we did our last kind of London headline at the Dome in Tufnell Park, which is North London,
Mm-hmm.
which is it was a really special gig because so many friends and family were down for that one.
Nice.
But yeah, it's one of those ones I've seen loads of bands play there, so I played there a couple of times myself. But that particular show was a really really special one. Apart from the rest of those guys, I feel a little separated, but
right,
they've kind of come up in their local scene, and I've come up in a far different local scene.
Yeah. Are there any areas outside of England, just in Europe in general, that be it festivals that are that maybe cater towards heavier music like this, or even not, just even a surprise place that maybe you didn't expect that the band's been pretty well received?
Yeah, it's funny you say festivals actually, because I'm just going to backtrack now. That
Yeah.
Arctangent Festival in Bristol, between that and maybe Damnation up in, I think it was Leeds in Manchester now. Those two, Arctangent in particular, is kind of like Conjurer Fest. It's great.
Really?
Yeah, it's amazing because the band have played there. I think we've done it like 5 or 6 times now at this point, and played every single stage.
Oh wow!
Growing up the festival, and we'll turn up, and it's like cool. On the first hour that we rock up to the festival, we'll probably see like 20 to 30 Conjurer t-shirts.
Damn,
just rocking around. Yeah, it's pretty special. And we did an underplay show there on the Wednesday, So before the festival had actually started, and that was really cool because it was everyone that was at the festival was just at our set.
Yeah.
So yeah, in terms of UK fests, that's definitely a home for the band.
Nice.
Outside of the UK, we did a European tour with Celeste early in 2022,
Mm-hmm.
kind of French black metal band. So I think by proxy, Leon and that area where they're from is kind of become, I think it's kind of rubbed off on us a little bit because we played with them in their hometown.
Right.
That's kind of a cool one to go to because we did France with them, it's kind of now become a good spot for us to do.
Right. Well, you mentioned sort of the scene that you grew up in and then sort of the other scenes that the present Conjurer guys kind of grew up in. What was the scene like and sort of what era are we talking about that you grew up in? And then is that ultimately what led you to joining Conjurer? Did your band and Conjurer play a gig together at some point or?
Yeah. So my local scene from being a kid, I mean, before playing in bands, I'd always go to see. There's kind of some real great local kind of hardcore was like a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was probably around the time when bands like Gallows were really big and things like that in the UK. So you know, bands like Polar, who I ended up playing drums for as well, actually. Palm Reader, Employed to Serve, they were all kind of from my area in Surrey.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, going to go and see those bands quite regularly was always really cool. But beyond that, I ended up joining a few bands kind of further afield in London and yeah, just outside of Surrey.
Mm-hmm.
And one in particular was a band called Chapters, who are now two members of which are now in Urn. But yeah, kind of played with those guys for a few years. We did some touring, I think it was back in 2015. And we played in a town called Milton Keynes, which is quite close to Rugby and Northampton and where those guys are from. And Conjurer were the local openers on this tour, and everyone's just like jaws hit the floor, like, what the fuck is this? I think it was their second show as well, like the first time we saw them.
Damn.
And it was like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is heavy as fuck. This is really, really heavy. And yeah, kind of got to meet Brady and a couple of the other guys, and then kind of kept in touch loosely. And I think during the pandemic, I think the situation, you know, for them looking for a drummer came up, and because I'd been in that previous band that was quite a technical band, and was still touring with other bands and kind of still being active, I think they kind of saw that as, right, this is someone for consideration, really.
Right.
I mean, when you write music that's that intense, like Conjurer's music is, it kind of narrows the field a little bit as to like who you can get drumming wise, especially for a small country like the UK. So nice to think that if they've narrowed the field of who can play drums for them, that I'm still considered for that.
Right. Totally.
But, yeah, it's one of those things I always find with joining bands and playing with bands. It's, you know, it's always years after, you know, it's very seldom is it, oh, I've just met this person and then next week they've given me all this all this work or asked me to be in their band or whatever. So it's kind of that same odd thing of, you know, you meet someone, you go your separate ways, and then 4 or 5 years later get a message.
Right.
So,
when you joined the band, were there any sort of technical hurdles? I mean, you mentioned that you were playing in a technical band previously, but sometimes, you know, some aspects of the music can be just a little foreign to you, or a certain drum approach or orchestration, learning somebody else's material, interjecting sort of your own style into it. Was that a whole process?
Absolutely. Yeah. First and foremost, I'd been a big fan of, at the time, it was obviously the EP and then Maya, the first album, was out. And I was a big fan of the band anyway. It's kind of like, since seeing them from that local opener slot to seeing them grow across the UK, didn't feel like it was my band, but it was like, cool, I've seen these guys go from that to this big proper band, really. So yeah, knowing the material ahead of time was really, really helpful. But it's a tough one because there's kind of layers to a lot of the drumming that Jan had written.
Right.
I was trying to write down and make notes and all these kind of things. And a lot of the time it's like, if you just know the riff, you know the part, that's going to do 80% of the work for you, which is, I guess, well, that's a great thing. That means it's good drum parts because it fits the music. But I knew ahead of time that, because actually on that Revo tour that they did, they had a fill-in drummer,
Oh,
and they've had a few different fill-in drummers over the years. And Brady had mentioned that it's the small, really small, minute details that people weren't really catching,
right.
and that was really, really important to them because that's what made Jan's parts so exciting. There's
Mm-hmm.
kind of layers to it. There's the stuff that's really obviously going to support the riffs and the music, and then there's the little accents that kind of make it a little more interesting. So
Sure.
yeah, that was kind of the hardest stuff. And like you say, if they got, even if they got a different setup to you,
Right.
I find it interesting learning someone else's parts because you kind of get to see what their influences are and
Sure.
try and channel those a little bit. But I mean, at this point, playing with the band nearly 2 years now, I'm probably playing it completely different at this point.
I
But,
know, right?
yeah, just like, oh, I'll add this and then I'll add this and I'll add this. And then you listen back to the album and it's like, I'm just doing something else.
Right.
It's not what I was learning originally.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's the way it evolves. I've gotten into bands as well and had to learn their stuff, and thankfully they weren't as probably as well known as even what you got into. So the expectation wasn't that high outside of just some of the band members being like, "Can you get this closer to what it is?" And at a certain point, I would get it kind of close, and then similar to what you're saying, I would listen to like a live recording of it and be like, "All right, well, I guess I just made this my own. No one complained about it, at least not to me." So that's just what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's it. I think it wasn't so much the guys being like, from the get-go, this has to be perfect. But I think because they've done tours and shows with fill-ins, it's like, yeah, this kind of feels a little bit different, but not as cool as it should do.
Mm-hmm.
So why is that? And usually it's like just the little things really. And like you say, the live aspect's such a big part of the band as well. Like I think at this point most of it's on click track, but there's quite a few songs and sections that are off click for the band. So it's getting that push pull that was the hardest thing for me.
For sure.
A lot of the slower stuff as well was really tough.
Yeah.
Because I just want to push all the time. Or
of course.
I mean, it's as hard as any other band really, but it's just about getting into that headspace.
Totally.
What is it that makes these guys tick, and what are they looking for really?
Yeah. When did you start playing, and did you study at all, or are you primarily self-taught? Or
yeah, so I started playing drums when I was about 9 years old.
Wow.
Just through school. They had a drum teacher coming in. I know we don't have band, kind of like marching band stuff like you do in the States, but yeah, we had a drum teacher come in, so I'd do that kind of in lunch times and stuff. And then when I left that school, it was something that I really got on with quite well. I think it was surprising, like I'm kind of just getting this really quickly.
Yeah.
Kind of blistering through songs and things like that. I was probably rubbish, but
Right.
it felt like I was doing really, really well.
Yeah.
And that in itself was really fun. And then kind of getting into Nirvana, Led Zeppelin, that kind of stuff was a real great inspiration to keep pushing on the drums. And then, yeah, just having tutors. I've had tutors up until I went to a university actually in Surrey. So I guess I've had drum lessons probably until I was about 19, 20. So
Gotcha.
10, 11 years or so
Right.
of different tutors. So yeah, I should probably be much better thinking about that with the amount of tuition I've had. But
right.
Yeah.
Do you, and you mentioned that you have a studio now, but it's like south of London where you live, but you get to go out and drive your parents crazy all over again after all the years of torture already?
That's it. So the studio is not actually at my parents' house. It's at a friend's house
Gotcha.
that we built while I was still living here. He was getting interested in recording and producing and things like that, and he did the same. He went to the same uni that I did.
Okay.
And grew up, and we've been to school together since we were like real young. So yeah, he was getting interested in recording and audio engineering, and I was getting interested in following university, getting interested in working and teaching. And we were no longer able to use the facilities at the university to kind of fulfill those desires. So yeah, we just built a studio space from scratch and kind of built a business around that. So since moving out, I've kind of been coming back and forward. So not annoying the parents so much with the drumming, but more so with just my presence, I think, coming back and drinking all their drink and eating all their food, and yeah. So that's probably the most annoying part.
That's hilarious, man. Well, going forward, what does Conjurer have going on? I know we're kind of getting in towards the tail end of the year here, so sometimes things die out. I feel like a lot of times, stuff tends to go down in the summer, kind of spring, fall, summer, etc. But what's going on with you?
Yeah, so we kind of, we're in the midst of a few, I guess we call them weekenders. I don't know if you guys call them that. We just do 3 or 4 shows across the weekend. We just finished up 2 of those with Music Venues Trust and Kerrang, which is kind of to get people down to their local venues, kind of independent venue kind of stuff to promote local scenes around the UK. So we were doing smaller cities and towns around the UK than we normally would do, which is really cool. We've got one more kind of weekender coming up at the end of the month across the UK, and then we're on tour. We're back out in Europe across the middle of October with a band called Nostromo.
Okay.
Some kind of late 90s, early 2000s grindcore band.
All right.
Yeah, I kind of heard the name, but never really checked it out. And then we got the offer through, and their latest record is insane. It's really, really great. So if you're into, a friend of mine described it as it's like if Textures were like extreme grindcore kind of stuff.
Okay, damn.
But yeah, it's pretty intense. Yeah, and then just kind of dying down. We're writing some music, trying to get on top of that as soon as possible, because the difference or the distance between the 2 albums in the past has been way too long. I think it was about 4 years before Pathos came out.
Right. So
we're trying to get on top of that for, I don't want to say next year release, because we still got a lot of work to do, but sooner than the previous one. But yeah, getting some stuff together for next year. We'd love to come back out to the States.
Yes.
So it's just about finding the right tour for that, really. Yeah, bits and pieces kind of coming in, but nothing's announced yet. We got some stuff confirmed for middle of next year, which is awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, damn, Noah, thanks for hanging, man. It was good talking to you. I'm glad we caught up. Definitely, I'll have to keep tabs on if y'all are coming to the States, or by all means, if I end up in the UK area, I'll give you a holler.
Absolutely, bro.
We'll have a cold pint at that.
Sounds good to me.
All right, on. All right, Noah.
Great to chat to you, man. Appreciate that.
All right, man, you too.
Take care, dude.
All right, everybody, that does it for this one. Thanks for tuning in. I hope y'all enjoyed the chat. Keep tuning in, and I'll keep the episodes coming. Thanks, Noah and the Conjurer crew. I hope y'all can catch them on some of these upcoming dates. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace. Crash, bang, boom.